Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And we were talking about the role of expertise last time, and we're going to take up on that. In one study, researchers identified 30 middle aged and older men who were avid horse racing fans. On the basis of skill in picking winners, the investigators divided the men into two groups, expert and non-expert. And I don't know what their criteria was on that, but evidently guys who were probably doing well and guys who probably weren't. The experts used a more sophisticated method of reasoning, incorporating interpretations of much interrelated information, whereas non-experts use simple, less successful methods. And in horse racing, probably comparing stats or just saying I like the name on that one. I actually won $40 on a horse once. I went with my ex-boyfriend. My grandfather used to go all the time. And I went with my ex-boyfriend, and I liked the name of this horse because my cousins had just done the thing they were talking about. And so I put some money down on it, and I won $40. So, because he was a long shot. You know. Studies of such diverse occupations as chess players, street vendors, abacus counters, physics experts, hospitality workers, and airline counter workers illustrate how specific knowledge contributes to superior performance in a particular domain. So it doesn't really matter the job, it's how long you've been at the job and how you're doing the job. And at some point, there's going to be probably younger people coming in that you might have to train or something. And you're going to be more expert than they are. That just comes with age and experience. Even within a field, expertise can be highly specialized. Different knowledge and skills are needed to design and interpret and experiment in cognitive psychology are different than in social psychology. And that's true. Because, if you design a test for, I completely lost my place and my brain just went kapoosh. I love it. I love it. If you're designing tests for cognitive psychology, you're thinking about the person's thought process. Alright, I'm back. That was my son. He just wanted to talk. But yeah, if you were worried about cognitive psychology, you'd be worried about the cognition, the way you were thinking and everything. And in social psychology, it's more about society and, interpersonal relationships. So, even in the expertise of psychology, there are differences. Experts notice different aspects of a situation than novices do, and they process information and solve problems differently because they have experience to draw on. Their thinking is often more flexible and adaptable because they know stuff happens, things change, and there are variables. Whereas, someone just straight out of the college is going straight by the textbook, and anytime variables happen, they're kind of like, oh, let me go back. And, because I remember that when I was first starting out seeing class, I was like, well, that's interesting. Let me think about that. And so I'd go home and do my homework, get in the books and, say, what does this say? What does this say? But, after I've been around it for a while, I don't need to go back because I know what it says and what you should do and, how this works out. So, the more you are in things and do things, the more you know. They assimilate and interpret new knowledge more efficiently by referring to a rich, highly organized storehouse of mental representations of what they already know. Because, like I say, when you start learning, you have a bedrock, and then you build on, what you already know. They sort information on the basis of basic principles rather than surface similarities and differences. So, whereas someone who's new to something, well, this looks like this, or, this is, or, that doesn't look like this. but there are more variables, like a rash to a, guy. Monkeypox was the latest thing. He might say, well, that's monkeypox. Let's get you this, antiviral or whatever. Whereas a more experienced doctor might look at it and he's seen, 15 cases of monkeypox, but he's seen 20, 1,000 cases of, measles. And so you can say, you know what, that's measles. It might kind of look, but no, that's measles. So, there are differences, that a expert will pick up on that a novice won't. And they are more aware of what they do not know. And that's like I say, I know I'm smart enough to know I don't know it all. There's a whole lot of stuff I don't know. That's what always bothers me when you come across someone who thinks they know it all. And they're never wrong. They can't be wrong. And they get irritated and mad. Even if you'll say, well, here's this piece of information. Oh no. That just trips me out when someone is never wrong. Because it's like, you realize how insecure you look, right? That you can't be wrong. It's okay, because I'm probably wrong, every other day at least, about something. But cognitive performance is not the only ingredient of expertise. Problem solving occurs in a social context, because all people are not created equal. Even though it says that in, the Bill of Rights. Everyone's different. Everyone's unique. And that's just how they are. Everything they've lived, everything in them makes them who they are. So, you can't deal with John like you might deal with Jack. Because John is different than Jack. And John has this temperament and he was raised this way. And Jack is different. So, there's always differences that have to be taken into account. Like I had two people had the very same problem, with the way they were raised and things that happened to them. But this one was very anxious and nervous, and this one was more of an escapist. So you couldn't treat them both the same because they were exhibiting it in different ways. And we want to treat, the symptoms as well as the underlying cause. So, before you can start getting into the deep stuff, you have to get on the surface stuff, the behaviors, and some people just don't like it when you start messing with their behaviors. They've developed their behaviors for a reason. They don't like when you're messing with them. But if it's a maladaptive behavior and it's holding you back in life and it's creating problems in your relationships, then it is a problem. And it needs to be addressed, or you're just not going to have a life or relationships. Ability to make expert judgments depends on familiarity with the way things are done, with the expectations and demands of the job and the culture of the community or enterprise. And again, culture plays a part. Different cultures have different ways of doing things, saying things, behaving, acting, culture is different all over the world. What you might say in one culture, you should never say in another culture. What might be okay in one culture is definitely, reason that you might even get arrested in another country. So culture does play a part. You need to know a little about a culture and, behave accordingly if you're going to work with people in a social situation. Now, if there are problems socially, that's something you're going to have to deal with too, because we don't live in a vacuum, and unfortunately a lot of people do try to, remove themselves from society and live in a vacuum, a little codependent world of their own, and that's not healthy, and it's going to keep them from having fulfilling relationships. Excuse me. Even concert pianists who spend hours practicing in isolation must adapt to various concert halls with different acoustics, to the musical convention of the time and place, and to the musical tastes of their audiences. Because this way you do this one might sound great in your, music room, and then you go out there and it sounds terrible. So, there's always little tweaks, always little adjustments that you have to make. And there's a learning curve anytime you do anything. So, you just keep at it and keep tweaking until it feels like, okay, this is working. We got somewhere now. We're getting traction. Let's do this. Expert thinking often seems automatic and intuitive. And to a degree it is, but that knowledge had to be internalized first in order to recall it and to use it. Experts generally are not fully aware of the thought processes that lie behind their decisions because they don't have to think about it anymore. They know it and they don't have to think about it anymore. They can recall it, work with it, and there it is. And that's the difference between an expert and a novice on something. They cannot readily explain how they arrive at a conclusion or where a non-expert has gone wrong, because you don't think about how you think normally. But when you go for therapy things, they teach you and tell you to start becoming aware of how you think, because sometimes that can be a problem. But if it's just a person in a field, I know this and I know how to do this, and how do you do that? Oh, I don't know, I just do. And they can't pinpoint, like, why didn't this, like they talked about the x-ray thing, why didn't these guys see that's a collapsed lung and not a tumor? They've just not had enough experience with it. The experienced radiologist could not see why the residents would even consider diagnosing a collapsed lung as a tumor, because he's just got the experience. He's seen enough of them. He knows that's what it is. They haven't. No idea. Such intuitive, experience-based thinking is characteristic of what has been called post-formal thought. So post-formal thought, you can Google that if you want to, but it's a way of, how we go through the when we're young, and then the formal thoughts as we get older. Post-formal thought is where you start to become an expert at things, and you can just recall and use your knowledge that you have to help you in your life. Integrative thought. Although not limited to any particular period of adulthood, post-formal thought seems well suited to the complex tasks, multiple roles, and perplexing choices and challenges of midlife. So nature has provided us with the brain ability to get through all the things we're going to have to get through when we're in our midlife. An important feature of post-formal thought is its integrative nature. All the things start, to work together. Mature adults integrate logic with intuition and emotion, and sometimes that's not necessarily a good thing, because sometimes people have too much emotional input, and it overrides their logic and reasoning. They integrate conflicting facts and ideas, and they integrate new information with what they already know. And again, some people have problems with that. Some people, there can't be any conflicting ideas and thoughts. This is it, this is what's right, it's like, okay, but what's right on this side of the world is wrong on this side of the world. So you have to live in reality, because that's where we are. New information is a threat to some people. It's like, well, I always thought this, but now I found out there's a study that says this. It's new information, and they don't want to accept that. It's like, no, this is what I thought, this is what I believe. No new information, not allowed. They're choosing to be ignorant, and I think that's a shame, because I believe you should grow constantly as a person and learn all you can. They interpret what they read, see, or hear in terms of its meaning for them. And we all do that. We're all listening to WIIFM. What's in it for me? You know, we compare everything as how it relates to me. And that's why there's things that we find uninteresting. We don't care about it because it impacts us in no way. It doesn't affect us. We don't care about it. You know, and that might be, you know, sports or the ballet or whatever you don't like. There's nothing in it for you, so you just don't bother. Instead of accepting something at face value, they filter it through their life experience and previous learning. So that's another thing about relationships. Everyone filters an experience through everything they've already lived through in their entire life, because that's made you who you are. So one person experiences a thing this way and another person experiences a thing this way. An outsider might say, no, you're wrong, because they're right. But no, this person had this experience, but at the same time this person was having this experience in the same event. So that's something where people have problems with relationships, where right and wrong, normally when there's a disagreement, there's not right and wrong, unless it's a clear-cut case of right and wrong. It's usually a difference of opinion, a different point of view. And when you learn that and can start working with that, that will help your relationships a lot. In one study, early and late adolescents and middle-aged and older adults were asked to summarize a Sufi teaching tale. In the story, a stream was unable to cross a desert until a voice told it to let the wind carry it. The stream was dubious, but finally agreed and was blown across. Adolescents recalled more details of the story than adults did, but their summaries were largely limited to repeating the storyline. And if you ever talk to young folks, they do a lot of repeating. It's kind of comical sometimes. You're having a conversation, and instead of having new input, they just repeat. And it's kind of cute, but you know. Adults, especially women, gave summaries that were rich in interpretation, integrating what was in the text with its psychological and metaphorical meaning for them, as in this response from a 39-year-old. And that's because of the way our brains are wired. Women have 3 times the connections in their corpus callosum, and we're wired to have logic and emotion talk to each other. That's so back in the day when there were large predators, we could think on our feet. We would take our little child, because that's part of the emotional part. We want to save our child, keep it safe from this predator coming at us. We got to be thinking in our feet. Should I climb a tree? I don't know. This thing can climb. Should I go down in this hole? It's big. It might not fit down in there. Let's go that way. You know. Whereas the man was the stand and fight, you know, creature, and that's why he didn't need all those connections, you know, in his corpus callosum. His decisions were either emotional or logical. And that's how most men are. They're modal. They have to shift gears. It's like we're an automatic and they're a stick shift. They have to shift gears. So we're about 3 times faster than they are. That's why they talk about women's intuition. It's not necessarily intuition. We don't have any magical power. We just have a brain that both sides talk to each other about 3 times faster than yours. So we're a little quicker on the draw, so to speak. And here's what she said, this 139-year-old that responded. I believe what this story was trying to say was that there are times when everyone needs help and must sometimes make changes to reach their goals. Some people may resist change for a long time until they realize that certain things are beyond their control and they need assistance. When this is finally achieved and they can accept help and trust from someone, they can master things even as large as a desert. And see, that's a very, you know, metaphorical way of explaining that story, and that's, basically the concept. That's why they chose her response. So, you know, excuse me. I'm trying to get a sore throat. I've been sneezing and coughing and things. Weather change. But yeah, women are more in touch with both sides of our brain. Society benefits from this integrative feature of adult thought, because if we were all logic or all emotion, that would be a problem, wouldn't it? So we need to integrate what we already know with everything else that needs to come into play here, like say logic, emotion, the context of the society you're in, what exactly is going on. It's all got to come in to play. And in midlife, you start having this thought process that enables you to basically be diplomatic about things in your life, because you probably now have adult children and you're aging parents, and you might be in a leadership role in your place of work or society, and you have a lot of decisions to make. So you have to be able to make those decisions. So nature has provided the ability for you to do that. Generally, it is mature adults who, like Gandhi, become moral and spiritual leaders. And that's because they are mature. That's the key word there. You cannot be a leader if you're not mature. Someone can appoint you a leader. You won't last too long if you're not mature. And some people, have commented about me. But it's like, I like to be silly. I was a comedian. I was on a comedy show for 2 runs. I don't have a problem with being silly. But as far as my life, I am a mature adult. And, one of my kids says, you better hope she don't have to have a serious talk with you, because she can cuss you out without ever using a cuss word. She will talk you down to the point where you feel, lower than a snake's belly. But, I don't like to have to do that to people. But sometimes if you're a leader, you have to do that. I've had to have some talks with some people when I was running the charity, and there were people who I had to say, there's the door, use it, don't come back through it, because they were doing the wrong thing, and that could have cost us, our charity, and so I wasn't going to allow that. And who translate their knowledge about the human condition into inspirational stories to which younger generations can turn for guidance. I wrote a book about a little dog. Frisky finds its forever home, and that's what it's about. It's not fitting in, being an outsider, and trying to find where you fit in, where you're happiest. And of course, the little dog in the story does find his forever home and lives happily ever after with his owner. But it's basically a book about outsiders. That you don't feel like you belong, and nobody's taking you in, and it's all metaphorical. And then I've wrote a series of books, called The Secrets of the Closet Monsters, and that is stories based from survivors of abuse. There was, myself, and there were other women. When I first started doing life coaching, there were a lot of older women who contacted me who said, I've never told anyone this, but and some of their stories were worse than mine. And I'm saying, I'm going to write a book someday. Can I use your story? Okay, sure, yeah. Don't use my name. And none of them did. And years went by, and these women, who were in their 70s, 80s, some of them in the past, hopefully they're looking down and seeing that I used some of their stories. It's just, I think something good, even though it's about a bad subject, these books I think are something good to help younger generations who might have gone through a thing and really feel alone, to know that there are other people who've gone through this thing. and you can get through it. And that's why I've continued the book series to show. I didn't want to say just all this bad stuff happened and leave it there. I wanted to show here's how, this person came out of this bad stuff and how they got into a better life. And so, like I said, one book I plan on writing is now into like 8 books, a series of 8 books. So, I'm going to plug myself here. If you want to check out the book series, The Secrets of the Closet Monsters by, me, Angelia Schwarz-Coleman. And, I think they're good books, but I'm a little prejudiced, I must admit. Post-formal thought also may help in solving practical problems, because we do have everyday problems, and experience and post-formal thought will help you with that. Whereas if something comes up, like my kids will still call me every now and then, what do I do? This happened, what do I do? Because I know, we've lived through stuff and we might know what you need to do. Because when they first get out there in their 20s and, new things are happening and it's scary, and we understand that because we got out there. I was 18 when I got out the house. I was told I had to go. But, me and my 21-year-old husband at the time, we were thrown out into the world. And, we had to figure it all out on our own. And we didn't have the best parents who were, being supportive and sweet when we call, I remember calling my mom about, something one time, and she's like, well, you know what? You made your bed, now you gotta lay in it, So I was like, that's helpful. That's great advice, that a young person wants to hear. So you need to be there for your young folks, because you are, in midlife, you are the person with experience. You are the person with knowledge to draw upon, and even though they need to find things out for themselves, you are the person who can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you some advice. Here's what I'll tell you. And then you do that. They don't have to take the advice. It can go one ear and out the other. But, I feel as a midlife person, that's your job. When you see younger folks going astray, that's your job. And I said something to somebody in a store one day, and, my family was like, oh, no. But it's like, no, he's a young person. Clearly, no one cared to teach him, or he didn't care to learn. But I'm going to let him know as an older person, that's not okay. That could be addressed, and other people do care, what you're doing. So, practical problem solving. Does deciding what to do about a flooded basement take the same kind of intelligence as playing word games? Probably not. Is the ability to solve practical problems affected by age? Probably. It depends. Much research on practical problem solving has not found the declines sometimes seen in measures of fluid intelligence. And some research has found marked improvement at least through middle age. And again, like I said, nature's equipping us with the ability to draw on this information and use it, because we're in that mid section where we have young adults going out and old parents going out the other way. So and then we're in positions of authority in the workplace and society and things, and we got to be able to draw on all that and make decisions for our life, and that's why a lot of people have a midlife crisis, because they can't do it. It's too much for them, and then they're just like, so that happens. In a number of studies, the quality of practical decisions, such as what car to buy, what kind of treatment to go for breast cancer, how much money to put away in a pension plan, or how to compare insurance policies, bore only a modest relationship, if any, to performance on tasks like those on intelligence tests. So, practical intelligence is something that usually is common sense. It's not high IQ stuff. It's something that you have to learn and know and draw upon to do. It's usually a rote task or something that's, a basic part of life. And it doesn't require any expertise. Mm-mm. And often no relationship to age. In other studies, problem solving improved with age, and that's because you have experience to draw upon. So, problem solving is one of those things where it definitely helps to have some experience. And I tell a story about when we grew up, there were times my parents couldn't pay all the bills that were due at once. And the slang my mom used was robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like, if these people aren't going to cut you off, they'll let you wait. If these people will, you pay them first. And then in another week, you pay these other guys. So I grew up knowing this. Well, my husband grew up in a family that was upper middle class. They never had to worry about paying bills. The money was just always there. He had a very permissive childhood. He knew nothing about responsibilities except, going and helping feed cows down the road. So when it came to the point where we were balancing checkbooks and having to pay bills, and the first time we didn't have the money to pay a bill on time, it was only going to be like 2 days late, but still, he got so upset it just wasn't even funny. But I said, this happens, I've seen my parents. Well, my parents never had a problem like this, but they may have. He just didn't pay attention. We don't know. But anyway, the problem solving was just not there. The immediate panic was there. And I'm like, okay, well, these people will let you be late. It happens, but these people won't. So we need to take care of these people, and then next week we'll take care of these people. So with experience and knowledge, you learn how to take care of problems. And that's how, where I'm going to leave you today. I hope this helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Thanks for watching or listening. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.